Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. It has been a while, but life goes on. Life happens. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host and the newly engaged Connor. It's about damn time here on the Kelly Green Hour. Connor, what's up, man? It feels like it's been, well, it probably has been months since. The Eagles did win the Super Bowl a little over 3 months ago. But how's life treating you, man?
Good. Thank you so much for the call out and congratulations. I know we've been joking about it for a couple minutes, but it's finally.
Minutes. I feel like we've been joking about it for a couple of years.
But it's done. It's over. It happened. So thanks so much, man. I know life did get in the way, and we haven't been able to react since pretty much a pre-free agency show that we did a while back. So, we're going to rapid fire I called it the Mega Eagles Offseason Reaction Show because we're going to hit free agency. We're going to hit the draft. We're going to hit the undrafted free agents. We're going to hit the schedule release, the Sirianni extension.
The tush push.
Maybe briefly. I think that might have been the most overly talked about and waste of time in meetings this year. But yeah, we'll talk about that too because it lives on.
It does, at least for another year. Before we get started into everything that's happened so far in the offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGHerald54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. And then if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts on the offseason thus far. We know the schedule. I already have a game I'm going to. It'll be in Minnesota in October. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to go to Buffalo, but being that it's in the end of December, I don't know if I want to trust that Buffalo weather. But yeah, so we can dive into that when we get to the schedule. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on everything that's happened so far in the Eagles off season. But yeah, Connor, like you said, we're going to jump in. We're going to hit a bunch of things. And now that we're back into it, we'll be able to get into during the off season, at least regularly, like once a week before we hit, preseason OTAs and whatnot. Just get our thoughts in what we're feeling about the Eagles so far. But yeah, let's jump into the free agents. They didn't make any spectacular free agent moves like last year signing Saquon Barkley. The biggest surprise to me was, and it did happen technically during free agency, was when they traded CJ, and I was upset about that. The 2-time CJ has been on the Eagles. They've been in the Super Bowl. They won it. He brings the boom, as a lot of people like to say. He brings that tenacity. He brings the swag to the Eagles secondary, and I really, really hope that does not hinder this secondary. We know that the starters are going to be Quinyon Mitchell at one corner. And Darius Slay is also going too, by the way. But we know Quinyon Mitchell is going to be the number one corner. Reed Blankenship's going to be one of the safeties. Cooper DeJean's going to be playing in the slot most likely. I wouldn't move him from the slot, by the way. I would keep him there. That's where he's best equipped. Now we need to figure out, is it Adoree Jackson? Is it Keely Ringo? That's going to be the corner opposite of Mitchell. Is it going to be Sidney Brown? Is it going to be Andrew Makubu, one of the draft picks? Is it going to be Justin Simmons if they sign him after June 1st? There's a lot of question marks in the secondary, and it's crazy because last year it was solidified, the secondary. Now we have a bunch of questions, and we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I think for me, right off the top, trading CJ was the biggest surprise to me. And the one thing I noticed was when it happened, unlike when in 2022 when CJ didn't re-sign here and he talked a lot, he said it was amicable. My thoughts are, when they gave Saquon the contract extension, he went and said, hey, can I get some more money? They said, unfortunately we can't do it right now. He has to be traded. He just wanted to be traded somewhere that he has a chance to win. It happened. I think that was more of an amicable thing between CJ and the organization, and that's why we haven't really heard a lot from CJ's camp in terms of why he's not going to be back.
Yeah, he did. That was definitely the biggest surprise move when that deal was made. It took a while to sink in. I don't think I was as upset by the deal as maybe you were. I know when it first came out, you were all over some of our chats with some frustration about it, and I get it because we saw life without him, and it felt like he was a lifeline. It felt like he was a source of energy, and especially with such large turnover in the defense on both sides of the ball this offseason, you would think that you would want as much continuity as you can continue to have in both of the rooms that you can possibly keep. So it did feel like a weird move, especially for a guy like Kenyon Green, who's really been just underwhelming. And I know that Howie Roseman has taken a liking to these reclamation projects on the offensive line. With Mekhi Becton last season, and I mean, if you go back through the years, there's always been a guy he's been willing to get in the room and see what they have. Kenyon Green is more of a left guard, though, so it'll be really interesting to see. Like, this isn't like the same reclamation project with Mekhi Becton unless you can get him over to the right side on right guard and then put him at war with Tyler Steen again. Poor Tyler Steen's fighting for his job every year, despite when he's been pushed into the position. He's been extremely reliable. He's been really good when he had the opportunity to cover for Mekhi Becton last year when he was hurt for a couple games. So it is weird that the move felt weird, but then in the Howie mentality and in the Howie way, it just felt like, okay, I see it with the Kenyon Green. I kind of get it with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's got a couple options that we're going to bump up his guaranteed money or his salary for 2025 and 2026 come September. So I get it. He's looking towards the future and, maybe a Jordan Davis extension, a Jalen Carter extension, Reed Blankenship extension, as much as we may kind of loathe him on this podcast. He's due to make some money, so he's going to get his extension. Saquon Barkley got that big extension this offseason. Could Jalen Hurts be in line? Because now Jalen Hurts is outside the top 10 moneymakers at quarterback. So could they, if he has another really good year or mid-season, want to reward him with some more guaranteed money, some more average on his salary on his years? It's going to be interesting to see. I guess I get it in a way. And then they took Andrew Makuba. And, you talked about Keely Ringo. The Philadelphia Eagles seem really high on a lot of the young guys, and they want to give some of these young guys a shot who kind of got buried last year with all the offseason moves that they made. So now they're like, well, maybe it's time to give. I thought Sidney Brown was going to step into the starting role. And then when they got Makuba, I was like, okay, cool. I know we're going to dive into him a bit later, probably in our draft portion, but I was like, okay, cool. I can get behind that. I know that there's some other guys who bring some energy. There's a lot of young guys in the building that are probably hoping to step up and show they can bring the energy that we might lack or lose from moving on from Gardner-Johnson. But yeah, it was definitely, it shocked me. And it took me a couple weeks to kind of get it together. But I've seen Eagles Eric did a breakdown of this is why they traded him. And he is a liability in coverage. He did give up 10 of the Eagles touchdowns on defense last season. But I mean, the energy he brought, some of the swag, some of that pop in his game, it's something we're definitely going to miss, but we maybe got better because Makuba's a much better coverage safety. What's Sidney Brown going to bring? He got injured. We didn't really get a chance to see him. Maybe the Eagles have seen enough that they're confident him and Makuba can take over the Gardner-Johnson role and us be just fine. And safety's never been a position we've really valued. So, I mean, to move on.
Well, I mean, the couple times that we have valued it, Malcolm Jenkins, we won a Super Bowl. CJ, we won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, it goes to tell you that it is a very important position. And even if the Eagles don't, quote unquote, value it, they probably should, because it is you have to have somebody back there you can trust. They trust Reed Blankenship. I still come to my thinking there is he's still a third safety. I wouldn't want him to be a starter. I still think Justin Simmons is a possibility. They want to probably see it with OTAs coming up. They want to see, where Sidney Brown stands in his rehab, see what Andrew Makuba is able to do. My big thing with Sidney Brown is we've talked about, he's a heat-seeking missile. But he misses a lot of tackles because he goes in there and trying to kill somebody. And that you don't necessarily want that back at the safety position. I don't know if they necessarily want to maybe move Cooper DeJean back to safety eventually. But as of right now, I mean, he's the best cover. He's the best, slot corner in football right now. So I'm not moving him from there. Maybe if they go to if they go to like base defense with just 4 DBs, they put him on the outside. But you're going to primarily play 3 corners. He's going to be at the slot. That's going to be important in terms of who's going to play on the other side. Makuba also did play some slot at Texas, so maybe, just maybe, like you said, we're going to talk about him next segment, but maybe that they'll put him at the slot if Sidney Brown is capable starter, or if they bring in Justin Simmons and let DeJean play on the outside. So in terms of the free agents, AJ Dillon, Adoree Jackson, Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari, Harrison Bryant, Kendall Lamb, Matt Pryor, Kyle Granson, just to name a few. And you mentioned Kenyon Green. I do think they're going to give Kenyon Green a shot at the right guard position. I know you said he's primarily a left guard, but what's the one thing that Stoutland likes? Versatility. So if he's going to just be a left guard, he's not going to make the team. So you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to play around. You're going to have to try the right side of the line. I mean, that's one of the primary reasons why Andre Dillard wasn't here anymore, because he pretty much was strictly a left tackle. Remember, they tried to play the right tackle one time, and that didn't work out. That worked maybe a half. So of the guys that I mentioned, I was calling for Azeez Ojulari. If you remember, I was big on him and the Eagles potentially signing him. So I think putting him with the Georgia boys. They have so many Georgia guys on this defense. It's crazy. Lewis Sign, Carter, Davis, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, and they might feel good about Nakobe Dean's rehab. I still tend to think he's going to start out on PUP, but you never know. Keely Ringo. I really, really wanted Malachi Starks. And again, Baltimore, of course, he went to the perfect spot for him. But I'm a big Ojulari fan. He's not that great against the run, and that's something that they're going to have to figure out, because Brandon Graham was really good against the run. And obviously he's not back with his retirement, even though I really tend to think that he might find his way back onto the roster. I'm just saying.
Never say never.
Never say never. But I'm big on the Azeez Ojulari signing, and I think he has a chance to put up numbers. And again, like you said, how he likes to sign these low risk, high reward guys. A lot of 1-year contracts. Jalen Carter is going to get a monster contract next offseason, so he's not trying to handcuff him. Maybe Ojulari, Uche, somebody, all these 1-year contracts, one of them kind of step up. He'll be able to bring, 1 or 2 of them back. But I would like to see what Ojulari is able to do, on this team with this defense and this scheme. And again, Justin Simmons could potentially come in. A defensive end out there that's available could potentially come in. We'll see what happens. Somebody that's comfortable in the Vic Fangio system.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell this is a team in transition, because he went out there, he signed, you named just a handful of them, but there's about 10 or 12 guys that they signed to just 1-year contracts. And then they went in, and this must have been one of the largest draft classes they've left with, because they ended up coming out. Yeah, they ended up coming out with 10 draft picks, plus they gave over 180,000 guaranteed, which is significant money, to 3 undrafted free agents. So you can tell this is a team that's in transition. You can tell that they know they've lost a lot of people, and that they got to rebuild the pipeline and rebuild the system with some of the players that they brought in. And you can tell this is going to be, I think, a very competitive OTA, a very competitive training camp, and a pretty competitive preseason for the guys who are competing for roster spots. You can tell, like you said, versatility is key on the offensive line. You can tell it's going to be interesting to see what Jeff Stoutland does with these guys, because a lot of these guys are coming in exclusively playing one position. I know Drew Kendall, we'll hit on him in the draft pick portion. He's an exclusive centerman, has some experience at guard, I think, in high school, but
he was a guard. He mentioned he was a guard at Boston College before he switched to center because they needed one. He went into Boston College as a guard, so he can play both. Yeah,
so exactly, and which is good. But then you look at like Keegan, who we drafted last year. He's pretty much hasn't done a whole lot on the right side of the line. He's pretty much stayed on the left side as a left guard. Then you talk about you had Kendall Lamb coming in, and he was going to be potentially, swing tackle. And then they went out and they got 2 guys who have massive swing tackle experience, or one with big swing tackle experience in Miles Hinton that they drafted, and then they got then they went out and drafted Cam Williams, who's going to probably go to right tackle, and then they got Holland Pierce as a UDFA, who's going to be a swing tackle option too. Like, they're definitely going to look for versatility, but I think it's going to be really intriguing internal on the inside of the offensive line to see, like, Kenyon Green, what can you do in other positions? Keegan, what can you do in other positions? Like, Kendall, what can you do in other positions? What other positions can we trust you with? Because you know that this team doesn't like to sit on a guy or hold a guy who's just going to be a left guard or who's just going to be a right guard. Or
who's the guy that they drafted last year that they ended up cutting because he was strictly just a center? And he ended up going to the Rams.
Oh, Dylan McMahon. That was Dylan McMahon.
The NC State center.
And you can tell they didn't want to make the same mistake twice because they immediately, upon drafting Kendall, said he's going to be a center guard. Yeah. And they wanted to open up that flexibility that, hey, he's not just a center. We're going to test him out elsewhere, despite, how he kind of spoke to, you need another guy who can snap a football, because we have seen in the past, they've tried to, put a guy in there who doesn't have a whole lot of center experience, and it hasn't exactly gone that well when snapping a football. So it is really important that you have a guy who knows how to snap a football, but creating that versatility along the offensive line too. I agree with you as far as Ojulari goes. I think if I was to pick like my favorite sign-in, it's not like how he gave us a whole lot to work with. And then when you look at the depth chart, Ojulari seems like the best fit. We like Jalix Hunt. I love Jalix Hunt. I think there's more to develop there. I don't think he's a guy like Nolan Smith who you're going to be able to put out there 80, 90% of the time and be able to trust him to make plays consistently, despite what we saw in the playoffs. It was very good. It was very impressive. It was very promising. And I'm sure that helped them let Josh Sweat go to the massive contract that he got. But I do believe, Ojulari is someone who's likely going to split a decent amount of time with Jalix Hunt as Hunt continues to develop and refine his game and get even better, because I know that, the sky's the limit. It took Nolan Smith some time. Jalix Hunt, it's going to take him a little bit of time, but I think he's going to continue to develop and be really good. He shines so much already that you can trust that there is definitely some promise there. I was a little surprised, and I'm sure it could change if through OTAs and training camp they see the need. I was a little surprised at interior defensive line and that they didn't really bring in any competition. I mean, I know the underlying stat with Moro Jomo, his win rate out there was exceptional, but he only played about 50% of snaps. So what happens if you push him into more of a role? I love Ty Robinson, the vanilla gorilla. Cannot wait to see him out on the field. I had him as I mock drafted him to the Eagles a number of times in some mock drafts that I did. So it'll be interesting. I mean, when I broke down the depth chart and did like a way too early 53-man roster prediction, it's hard to squeeze much more into the interior defensive line because that they want more player guys on the offensive line. They're going to want to keep a lot of linebackers and edge rushers because they use them so interchangeably. That they're going to keep at least 5, maybe even 6 cornerbacks. You just know, just based on going through it and the breakdown, there's just not a lot of room left at the interior defensive line. So that's probably why Howie's going with what he's got, and he's going with his gut and knowing he trusts Jordan Davis, he trusts Moro Jomo, he trusts Jalen Carter, and all that's left behind him are just a couple guys that they need to rotate in here and there.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how those battles occur when we get to camp and OTAs and whatnot. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Let's jump to the draft picks. And something you had mentioned is it's shocking that they made so many draft picks. And I am too, because when you look at this roster, you have to think the top 40, 45 positions are kind of set. It's just a couple of backups that that are going to have it, or it's a couple of guys that weren't on the team last year that aren't going, that are going to have an opportunity to make this team. But jumping to the picks, the Eagles made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 draft picks. That doesn't include the UDFAs. And in round 1, they went with Jahad Campbell from Alabama, trading up 1 spot with the Chiefs. Andrew Makuba out of Texas in round 2. Ty Robinson out of Nebraska in round 4. In round 5, they went Mac McWilliams, Small Munden, and Drew Kendall. And then in round 6, they made 4 picks. Kyle McCord, quarterback out of Syracuse. Miles Hinton, Michigan tackle. Cam Williams, Texas tackle, and the outside linebacker, Antoine Powell Ryland, out of Virginia Tech. He's more of an edge. I think out of those, the one that I'm most intrigued in is Antoine Powell Ryland. He had over 20 sacks combined in the last couple of years, and he fell all the way to round 6. Maybe it's a size thing, who knows, but he's somebody that has a chance to make the team as an edge rusher to get after the quarterback, and maybe sort of like in that Jalix Hunt thing, role that he had last year. He's not going to be out there all the time, but when, put him, as he becomes more comfortable with the defense, put him out there just to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think they left a really golden opportunity bringing Ojulari, and that they're going to give a lot of opportunity to some of these younger edge rushers. And Power Island, I think one of the reasons I think he's 24, 25. Like, he's quite a bit older in regards to the edge side of it. But the Philadelphia Eagles, you know them. They go for either elite athleticism, which Power Island is pretty good athleticism, or really good production. They love people who produce and who did a good job producing, and they'll take a shot on that because usually production sticks. That's something that you see. He's obviously not going to come into the NFL and go and get, unlikely, maybe, but to go and get like 10 or 12 sacks in his first season or be given that opportunity enough to do that. But, you do want to, you like a guy that can produce like that because that he's probably going to come in and he could do 4 or 5 sacks, could do even more. It depends on what type of playing time he gets and what type of role he's able to carve out. I spoke to it a little bit earlier in the episode. My favorite pick was Ty Robinson. I really like Ty Robinson. He just screamed a Philadelphia Eagle through the whole process. Like, he's a guy who's going to work his ass off. He's a guy who's going to get work inside and get out. Like, beside Jordan Davis, I think those two are going to wreak some major havoc. But Jalen Carter, sorry. Beside Jalen Carter, I think they're going to wreak some major havoc. He's got some good athleticism. He's got some good athletic traits. Decent production out of Nebraska. So, it'll be interesting to see. But like you said, 10 picks is a lot. And it's rare, very rare to see the Philadelphia Eagles in that first season after drafting guys not give them a chance. So you almost have to assume all 10 guys or a high number of these guys are going to make this roster year one. And it'll be really interesting to see how they do, because like you said, they got Jahad Campbell, made sense. Great move. The medical red flags drew him down a little bit, but he was clearly the best linebacker in this draft. And then like Smail Mondin was an interesting one. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how you fit everything. It felt like they picked in a way that they knew they were going to be short a linebacker because he's going to be on the PUP list to start the season, and that's Nakobe Dean. It felt like they opened it up as an opportunity to, and maybe there's this thought, Nakobe Dean's doing extension too. Could they replace him with Jahad Campbell, save a boatload of money, and let Nakobe Dean walk because he's going to be owed a significant amount of money, and they already paid Zach Bond a whole bunch of money? There's a lot of hypotheticals going on, but the fact that, like you said, they went out, they got Jahad Campbell, Smail Mondin, they got Antoine Powell Ryland, like that's a significant. And then you got Azeez Ojulari, you got Uche, you got a lot of guys that are going to be duking it out in that like hybrid linebacker edge type situation in camp and throughout the preseason. So it'll be interesting to see, but it's so rare. Like, this is what's so intriguing. It's so rare to see them not keep their draft picks and give their draft picks at least a season of opportunity. Then you look at the 3 UDFAs that they put $180,000 or more into, which is significant for in regards to UDFAs. That's significant guaranteed money. Like, what's going on? Who's going to make the team, and how is this even gonna work out? Like, I feel like some of those veterans, like a Joshua Uche, AJ Dillon, because they gave Montrell Jackson, the Florida Gator running back, $108,000 guaranteed as well. That's a lot of money. So it feels like guys like AJ Dillon, Joshua Uche, and even like a guy like Adoree Jackson are going to have extremely uphill battles to make this roster, because they're going to give a guy like Maxon Hook, Montrell Jackson, and some of these other guys a major opportunity to go out and make the roster, because they like to give opportunities. Montrell Johnson, thank you. They're going to give some major opportunities to these guys to make the roster because it's rare for them to not keep their draft picks and invest some type of development and commitment to those guys beyond year one.
Yeah, so and one of the things that I was intrigued was the Cleveland Browns jumping ahead of the Eagles in round round 5, 4 or 5, round 5, when the Eagles took McWilliams and the Browns jumped up and took Shedeur Sanders. And I actually think the Eagles were considering Shedeur Sanders. If there was a team that could handle the publicity, obviously the Michael Vick thing, bringing Vince Young in, even though he was kind of cooked at that point, the Carson Wentz and Nick Foles and Jalen Hurts thing. There's a team in the NFL that can handle all that, handle the publicity, handle all the media, whatever it's going to be. I don't want to say scrutiny. And if there's a quarterback that can handle having somebody come in here, it'd be Jalen Hurts. I really thought that the Eagles and Andrew Barry knows Howie Roseman, being that he worked here. So I thought that was very interesting when the Browns jumped up ahead of the Eagles. I don't know if the Eagles I don't want to say they don't know if they wanted Mac McWilliams per se, but I do think that if Shedeur was there, they may have taken him. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they were going to do it too, because like at that point, that was such a value fall. And like, no matter how you felt about the publicity in Shedeur Sanders, he was far more talented than where he went. Like there was nobody who.
I'm going to say this about Shedeur. The only reason that he was hyped up as the first round pick is because of his last name. He wasn't that good in college.
Agreed.
The fact that he got his number retired is a bunch of BS when Cordell Stewart hasn't gotten his number retired. Like, let's be real. He is an average quarterback. And, you know, there was one thing I saw. There was a video when him and Cam Ward were working out together. Cam Ward was kind of roasting him, like all those checkdowns that you had. I would have had, if I did that, I would have had a 90% completion percentage, not in the 70s or whatever. And like he said, like I was taking chances. Shedeur didn't do that. Like it's because of his last name and who his dad is why he was getting hyped up. He was not in my opinion, not a first round talent. Fifth round talent, probably not. Probably maybe third round, fourth round. But the only reason that he was being hyped up is because of his last name. He is not that great of a quarterback, I will say.
I agree. No, I agree. I don't think he's like a career NFL starter. I feel like even if he wins the job in Cleveland or eventually gets a shot in Cleveland, I feel like eventually he'll fall out of grace. He won't be able to bring the Browns what they want, and he'll become like a perennial backup. I think he would be a fine backup and just be able to do his job as a backup. But I agree with you. Most people had that grade range of about there's reports that people had first round grades on him. Most people had it between the second and the fourth round grade wise. Like some people probably went to the extreme on the other side of it and said he should have been a UDFA or something, but you knew that he was going to get drafted. Quarterbacks, you need them. You want to take shots on them. And Shedeur Sanders is someone who eventually somebody was going to take a shot at. It just felt so weird watching him fall. And it also, well, it was weird watching him fall. I think they made too much of it. Like, I don't know if you saw Mel Kiper, but like that was just getting absurd. Like, and then the NFL Network ended almost every round with a can't believe Shedeur Sanders is continuing to fall, and then going into a 5 or 10 minute discussion about it. At the end of night one, they spent most of their time talking about how Sanders fell. At the end of day two, they spent most of their time talking about how Sanders fell. It just felt like it was all about the last name, the name on the jersey, the nameplate. That was, like you said, that was what it was all about. And that was the reason, like, guys like Mel Kiper, first of all, I think his best days are clearly behind him.
Yes.
And, like, you look at the way, like, he calls the obvious guys. Like, the obvious guys that everybody knows he calls. He gets that outlandish pick here and there, right, where someone takes the shot on one of his guys. But he's a little cooked. He's beyond his better days of scouting. And he just showed that, like, it almost felt like senile moments that were happening on the air because he had Shedeur Sanders. I think he had Shedeur Sanders as a first-round pick. So
he had him as the top quarterback, which the one thing that really bothered me is they kind of took the shine away from Cam Ward being the number 1 overall pick.
Big time. Huge.
Because it was all about Shedeur. And it's like a lot of these guys were on Deion's payroll, and Jordan Schultz was the same way. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it just felt like a bunch of people, him and obviously Mel Kiper, just kept talking him up because it was like Deion was sending out the bat signal, talk up my son. But
it stole spotlight from not just Cam Ward,
yeah,
from
a lot of people.
A lot of people, like everyone in the first round. As each pick went by, I think you could almost have bet that there was 32 picks in the first round. Shedeur Sanders was probably mentioned after every pick 75% of the time, because as he continued to fall, they continued to mention, how's he there? How's he there? Why is he still there? What's going on? And then obviously everything that comes after that, like, oh, it's because of Sanders, it's because of race, it's because blah, blah. Then all the stories started to come out. And it's just such a crazy concept to think about. At the end of the day, this draft, we knew, like, the reporting going into it was that it was going to be a different draft. There was going to be guys fall you least expect. There was going to be some good UDFAs, because it was notoriously viewed by the league, constantly reported by the league, as not that good of a draft class. This was one that people will get. That's why I feel like Howie frequently traded back, because Howie saw a guy, didn't get his guy, traded back. Like, there was that report that came out about the Ravens pick, where they wanted to draft the tackle that the Ravens took in round 3. His name slipping my mind.
Not Emory Jones, right?
Yeah, Emory Jones. Yeah. So the Ravens took him, and there was a report that came out that, that the Eagles wanted. It appeared as though the Eagles wanted him, because as soon as that pick was made was when they decided to trade back with the Atlanta Falcons,
which is also why I'm shocked they took 10 guys. And I mean, they do have 11 or 12 picks next year too, in a draft that should potentially be better. So like, that's kind of why I'm shocked that they took all those guys in this year's draft. I mean, half of them aren't going to make the team. Like, if you were to look at it, Jahad Campbell will make it, Ty Robinson will make it, one of the tackles will make it, Hinton or Williams. So we'll end up seeing. Before we jump to the UDFAs, are you as surprised as I am? Or no, not even that. Jahad Campbell, is he going to primarily play off the ball linebacker or be an edge rusher? I think that he's going to be an off the ball linebacker. I mean, he can go sideline. He can do both. He can be like Zach Bond. You're going to have a replica of Zach Bond. It's going to be Bond and Campbell that could potentially both do the same things, play sideline to sideline, get after the quarterback. I don't think Campbell's going to be strictly an edge rusher. I think they drafted him to be a linebacker, and that's what I think that he could be best suited as.
Agreed. I think some people took Howie out of context and ran with it like, oh, they drafted him to be an edge rusher because we have Nakobe Dean. Why would he pick Campbell just to come into the Dean role? And like I said, Nakobe Dean, no matter when he comes back, he had such a productive year last year that he's going to be owed a decent amount of money. How much do we think Howie's going to be willing to pay two linebackers significant money? It was surprising to see Bond get what he got, but obviously Bond deserved it. Bond earned it. But they knew that they couldn't move on from Zach Bond. They had to pay Zach Bond. It was pretty clear. But like, I could see a way where I think, long-winded, but yes, I think he's going to be an outside linebacker. I don't think he's going to be primarily an edge. Will Vic Fangio use him in the edge role periodically? Absolutely. He uses all. If they have the versatility, he's going to use them in any role. Like, you could even see Andrew Makuba out of the blue get random edge snaps. I wouldn't be surprised, just based on where he'll line up or where he may be positioned on play call here and there. That's just the way that he is. If you have the versatility, he's going to use you in that way. I just think people saw edge as the need. And when Howie made the reference and the statement that he did in that press conference, there's a lot of media that just ran with it like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They drafted him as an edge, not a linebacker. That makes so much more sense. Whereas I can see a way where I don't think that Nakobe Dean's going to be ready for the start of the season. I think he's going to start on PUP just like you thought. And I think Jahad Campbell's going to get an opportunity to show what he's got and potentially take. Yeah, assuming he's ready too, of course, because he's got the injury history. But I just feel like he could, if he can stay healthy and show that he can be just as good, if not better than Nakobe Dean, that opens up the door to move on from Nakobe Dean. And I think that also means, like, that there's some big extensions coming up. If you're going to prioritize the extensions, Jalen Carter, priority number one. Nakobe Dean definitely wouldn't be on that same level, but Nakobe Dean may earn himself $15 million a year as a linebacker. Can you afford that with the $20+ million a year that you're going to give Jalen Carter? I feel like this draft was based on how he wants to give shots to a lot of young guys, see what he's gotten a lot of these young athletes, young, highly productive guys in college. And if they can crack the roster, it allows him to move on from somebody else and save some of these major extensions down the road. I think some of these were made with down the road. Who do I have to extend? Who can I replace with someone through the draft that we may not at this point be looking at as someone who can be replaced? And so that's why I think they took the 10 picks. That's why I think next year I wouldn't be surprised if they ultimately take 8 to 10 picks again, because he's looking to save money because there's a lot of big extensions coming. There's a lot of dead money over the next few seasons. He's got to save money where he can. And I think that he's looking to do that with developmental athletes or highly productive college players through the draft.
And if you look at the defense now, I mean, they went from having Brandon Graham, Darius Slay, Fletcher Cox, a bunch of guys over 30 to everybody's under 30 on the defense.
I think it's the youngest defense or second youngest. I think
Zach Bond is the oldest starter. Is Zach Bond the oldest starter, if I'm not mistaken? You got Quignon coming in year 2, DeJean year 2, Sidney Brown would be year 3, Kaylee Ringo year 3, Carter year 3, Davis year 4, Smith year 4, or year 3, I think, for Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt year 2. Like, this is a very, very, very young defense. And most, I was going to say most of the guys, but at least half the guys are coming back for second year under Vic Fangio. So you would think that Fangio is going to throw a little bit more at them. And again, we'll see what happens after June 1st. Justin Simmons is an older guy. He's at 31, I think. 32. So and he knows the Fangio system. So we'll see what happens in those terms. And then on the offensive side of the ball, the only position they're changing is right guard. Everybody else is back. Dallas Goedert came back on it most likely will be his last year in Philly on a reduced rate. Jalen will probably get a new contract next year, would be my guess. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley are coming back on a new deal. And then obviously the line, Mailata, Dickerson, Juergens, and Lane Johnson, who also got an extension too. So
yeah, a lot of these picks just feel like depth and developmental guys, and to see what you can do for the future, because Miles Hinton screams Fred Johnson replacement. He's a swing tackle. He played left tackle. He played right tackle. And then you look at a guy. Then you look at Cameron Williams. You kind of have to believe the fact that they went with 2 tackles, plus they also went and got a high guaranteed money UDFA tackle, that they're working on that. Can we get a cheap replacement for Lane Johnson, or before we need to, invest high draft capital in his replacement? If you can find the answer in Cameron Williams or Miles Hinton or Holland Pierce, maybe you don't have to spend that first or second round draft capital to replace for Lane Johnson's, successor.
You didn't have to for Mailata. Obviously, he was a 7th round pick, and he's one of the best left tackles in football. And speaking of the UDFAs, I mean, just to quickly name them all: Darius Cooper, a receiver from Tarleton State; Lance Dixon, linebacker from Toledo; Maxon Hook, who played with Quinion Mitchell in the secondary at Toledo. He's a safety. Brandon Johnson, Oregon DB; Montreal Johnson, Florida running back; BJ Mays, Texas A&M DB; Taylor Morin, wide receiver from Wake Forest; Holland Pierce, Rutgers, offensive lineman; and Shunderick Powell, Central Arkansas running back. And you mentioned just maybe they are just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Let's see what can stick. And fortunately for a Pierce and Hinton and Cam Williams, Lane Johnson should be good to go for 3 years, hopefully. Obviously you don't want to.
Seems 2 or 3 years, depending as long as he doesn't get a significant injury.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, knock on wood, the Eagles have been really healthy. I mean, in 2022 they had 22 of 22 starters in the Super Bowl. Last year, 21 of 22 starters in the Super Bowl. So let's knock on wood that the Eagles continue at that pace to stay healthy. Whatever's working, whatever Sirianni is doing. Everybody complains about how nobody plays in the preseason and they have hour practices. It's working. Who the hell cares what they're doing? It is working. Stop complaining. They're a Super Bowl winning team. It's worked. They've been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. They've won 2 of the last, 7, 8, whatever it is, Super Bowls. Let them do what they do. They are up there with the Chiefs of this era in terms of just productivity. There's only one team, obviously, is the Chiefs that have more wins and whatnot, have been the quote unquote gold standard in the NFL. Well, the Eagles are up there. They're not number one, obviously. That would be the Chiefs, but they are a team that continues to just go after it and continues to win. And it's going to be key, how we replace, some of the guys that he's lost in his front office. Joe Douglas is back. They lost a couple of guys to the Raiders. So we'll see what happens. But as long as you have Howie here, you have a shot.
Oh, absolutely. Every year teams poach guys from our head office because they want to find the next Howie Roseman. They want to find that guy who's inside Howie's brain enough to be able to be that guy. That's why you see them get pulled away. It's like, how's Howie doing this? How is this happening? We want you. It's kind of like trying to get inside the mind of a madman, of a psycho almost. And you're not going to fully get to what makes Howie click and how's Howie able to do what he's able to do. But it's also, we've seen that there's a lot of teams complaining about it. It's also Jeffrey Lurie's willingness to spend money up front. He's willing to say, pretty much write a blank check for every offseason to Howie and say, go get me a Super Bowl, go get us wins, get us whatever. Here's the signed check, because everyone's going on about, like, you see the situation in Cincinnati. They want to kick the can down the road with money. They don't want to foot the bill up front.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do that. That's why, they're in this thing with Hendrickson. And they were in this situation with T. Higgins and stuff. Jamar like Chase, Jamar Chase. Like, it's really hard for teams when your owner is not bought into it. So Howie has clearly sold Jeffrey Lurie.
Roger Goodell couldn't beat the Eagles in terms of the tush push. Now they want to talk about the salary cap and maybe have it to where everybody, like the whole with the Eagles adding dummy years and I really think that Roger Goodell wants to beat the Eagles somehow, and he's going to come at them anyway. I think Killer Comedy TV, thank you for joining us. Just stop by to say thank you for beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and I look forward to playing you guys this year. Sincerely, a Lions fan. I wanted the This is a great transition. Go into the schedule. I wanted the Lions week 1. I wanted the Lions, Rams, Commanders, not the freaking Dallas Cowboys. I get it. We're going to raise a banner in front of Jerry Jones and those cow turd fans and all that mess. But I wanted an opponent that's going to, that's somebody that we're battling with this year. Somebody that we potentially were battling with last year. And obviously the Lions were the number 1 seed, had the best record. That's who I wanted in week 1. I didn't want the Dallas freaking Cowboys, and I get it. We haven't seen, Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts play each other often because Dak usually gets hurt. What is going to be so exciting about Dallas? Brian Schottenheimer is one of the worst head coaches to be hired. When what's his face said that Doug Peterson was the worst, he should have been saying that Michael Lombardi was saying Doug Peterson was the worst hire ever. He should have been saying that about Brian Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer has been around for 20 years, and this is the first head coaching job that he's gotten. Like, nobody was clamoring to go after him. So
he's a perennial assistant coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Great assistant. I wouldn't even say he's a great
assistant. I gained respect for the Lions because they were, of all the opponents on the Eagles schedule this year, they're the only ones that voted not to ban the tush push. Everybody else did, because all the other 14 opponents for the Eagles voted to ban it. Only 2 NFC teams, it was them and the Lions and the Saints that voted for it. All the AFC East teams voted against the Bills, which I think is hilarious, by the way. The Patriots, Dolphins, and Jets. So, again, I have mad respect for Dan Campbell. Even do I think he's a great head coach? No, but I also think he's in the same vein as Sirianni. They're both great 100%. Leaders. They both command locker rooms. They're both player coaches. So I have great respect for Campbell. He said, look, you can't ban it because somebody else is good at it. We got to find a way to stop it. Aaron Glenn did the same thing pretty much said the same thing with the Jets. And he came from that Dan Campbell coaching tree. So I have great respect for Dan Campbell, for the Lions, and I am looking forward to that matchup. I wish it was week 1, but we have to wait till later on in the year. Killer Comedy says, also glad our team decided not to ban the tush push. It's just a QB sneak, basically. Thank you. That's all it pretty much is.
I was going to say this.
When Tom Brady was so good at, sorry, not to cut you off, Connor. When Tom Brady was so good at it, were people trying to ban it then? No. So grow a pair, shut up, and find a way to stop it. And when it comes to the tush push, a lot of people are like, why can't other teams do it? If you, are the Chargers going to ask Mekhi Becton how the Eagles are so good at it? Sure, he can try, but you don't have Mailata and Dickerson and Johnson and Jurgen. Like you don't have a quarterback that squats 600 pounds. Josh Allen is a huge guy and he can't run the tush push. So obviously something is, you don't have the proper personnel for it. So you can't, if you're going to ban the tush push because the Eagles are good at it, are we going to ban Tyreek Hill because he runs faster than everybody else? Are we going to ban Patrick Mahomes from throwing the ball down the field because he does it better than everybody else? No. Grow a pair and try to find a way to beat it and stop it.
Yeah, and like the stats out there, on the tush push, we actually have a better
QB sneak
success rate with the QB sneak. So we would have just found a way to go about, doing a different play, doing the QB sneak, because like you said, you have a guy who squats 600 pounds. He's going to find a way to get that 1 yard or whatever yardage he needs. And then the way, and I think that was concerning was the way that Green Bay worded it was basically they were going to get rid of
worded it.
The way the NFL worded it or re-put it forward. Yeah, exactly. So the way it was re-put forward was that basically banning offensive players being allowed to push another player altogether.
Used to be before 2005 or 2004.
Exactly. And you know what? And one of the biggest things somebody said, there was some other people who tweeted, the reason that this is also so controversial and you could easily get rid of it is the aspect that you are the forward progress. If you're constantly going to allow forward progress, teams are going to try and figure out ways to get the ball further, to get that extra inch or two. And then there's obviously the controversy around defensive players can't do that and so on and so forth. I do agree. I think forward progress is an issue. It does play into the fact that it's all about for the offense and getting that extra yard. I do think that, it's hard because then you can't stop a play as soon as a guy gets hit. But I mean, at the point of contact, that just feels like the point where if you get just an extra yard or two, like it's so hard to figure out how do you figure out how to work with forward progress. It's just such a difficult thing to work with. And that's just creating extra controversy and further controversy. But this is an offensive league. They're looking for ways to force you to get more yardage, to make the pace of play quicker. And they don't like the tush push because it's 1 yard here, it's 1 yard here, it's 1 yard here. It's just enough to get you the yardage that you need. But to think that we wouldn't just turn to the QB sneak and get the 1 yard we need in any other way, especially now that the fullback is alive and well in Philadelphia, you're going to find a way to get the yard that you need and be equally productive.
And they also signed Harrison Bryant, who took snaps for, was it Cleveland, pretty much in their version of it. So they would have found a way. But looking at the schedule, I mean, the first 5 games of the schedule are going to be key: versus Dallas, at Kansas City, versus the Rams, at Tampa, where we can never win, and we always seem to play in Tampa in September when it's 185,000 degrees. And then at home against the Broncos, those first 5 games are going to be pivotal. I do like that the Eagles have a midway season bye. We thought that the early bye was going to be a deterrent for the Eagles last year, but that obviously helped them. I'm going October 19th. I'll be in Minnesota for the Eagles-Vikings game, so I'm looking forward to that, my first time in Minnesota. Like I mentioned, I wanted to go to Buffalo, but that being a December 29th game after Christmas, I'm not trying to get to Buffalo in like 8 feet of snow. I was hoping for potentially Green Bay or LA, but those being Monday night games kind of suck. That Black Friday, the Eagles are playing on Black Friday. Eagles play on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday this year. Every day of the week except Tuesday and Wednesday when there aren't any games this year. So being the Super Bowl champs, being the team that we can call quote unquote America's team, because they're going to be all over national TV. Them and the Chiefs, obviously, the Commanders, the Cow Turds as usual. I don't know why. It's so annoying. But yeah, looking at the schedule, 2 things I don't like. We have the Giants week 6 and 8. Why? We have the Commanders week 16 and 18. Why? I hate that we have the Commanders so late in the season. I get it. The division could still potentially be on the line. We could have made that a week 18 game. Why are we waiting until December to face the Commanders for the first time? That makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you follow Jeff Kerr, he was putting a lot of things out about how weird this schedule was, and a lot of this is the first time in NFL history a team has had this, has had that, and the Eagles are at the forefront of being the
No
first team.
back-to-back home games.
Yeah, it's such a weird schedule the way that they put it together. They don't want to do favors for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the schedule is hard enough. We have one of the top 5 hardest schedules in the league. We didn't need the schedule makers to mess around and do weird things to make it any more challenging and difficult for us. But yeah, I agree with you. The Commanders game feels like it should be sooner, or flip flip the Commanders and Giants. Just one of the matchups, flip it. Yep. That's all you had to do. Why? I get it. The Giants, it's not must-see TV.
Except the first one's a Thursday nighter. So it's going to be prime time.
Prime time. You're putting us in this slot anyways. So, like, it's just weird. There are some weird kinks to the schedule. I mean, I don't dive into the schedule as much as others, but, like, it is – I'm happy we don't play on Christmas. That makes Christmas way harder. I thought
that was going to happen for a second. I thought it was going to be us in Green Bay on Christmas.
I thought so too. I was like, oh no, here we go.
Or us and the Bears on Christmas, because since we're on the road that Saturday before, we would be home that Christmas Day. But I mean, like you said, I'm glad we have 9 days off, because we go from a Saturday against Washington and then go to that following Sunday in Buffalo. 2 very physical games, by the way. So
I'm glad we have no international games too. Like poor Minnesota has to stay on the other side of the world for. You might as well stay. You can't go back home. Like you got to stay on the other side of the world for 2 weeks. Like that's just the fact that they're starting to do that with teams is.
Well, did you hear what they said? They want to have 16 international games a year, which means every team is going to be playing internationally at least once.
I mean, I guess at least it levels the playing field as far as, there's only X amount of teams that go over, and the Jags go over usually twice, and now you got Minnesota that went over twice. I mean, they're trying to spread their tentacles all over the world, and I get it. As long as there's no international team, that would suck. And I know that their aim is to eventually have like an international team, but I really don't want to see an international team. It's American.
Who's going to want to play there is going to be the big question.
Exactly. Imagine they end up in
that
NFC.
Team's gonna suck.
Yeah, well, that too. Like it doesn't make sense to me to have an international team. It's American football for a reason. Keep it American with games in other countries. That's fine. Every sport's doing games in other countries. It's fine. You want to get to your
game up in Canada
everywhere you possibly can, but
get a game up there in Canada for you. Maybe get the Eagles up there.
We don't have a big enough stadium anywhere to manage it, unfortunately.
Even the CFL stadiums aren't big enough?
Gosh, those are like 20,000. Like we're not even remotely
send the Chargers there, because the Chargers can't get 20,000.
Send one of the LA teams up there. It doesn't matter.
Come on, it really doesn't matter. What were your thoughts before we jump into Nick Sirianni's contract extension? The Buffalo Bills were announced as the Hard Knocks team for the training camp. The NFC East, which I think I mentioned in our group chat, like way back when that could be a possibility, is the in-season Hard Knocks. I can't believe the Giants are going to do it back-to-back years, by the way. This will be the first time that the Eagles are ever on Hard Knocks. The Eagles don't share anything, so this is going to be very intriguing, so I'm definitely interested in it. I think it starts week, I feel like 5 or 6 or something like that. I might be mistaken on that. I have to look into that. But what are your thoughts quickly on the NFC East being the Hard Knocks division?
I mean, eventually you knew that they were going to be – it came out that no one was volunteering, because nobody wants to be – like you see, that intimate setting, and you see what people are saying, and everything's scrutinized, and people try and get your secrets and stuff. Like it is what it is. You knew it was eventually going to happen, and the NFL was going to be forced to just start delegating what team was going to have to do it, or what division was going to have to do it. I'll be interested to watch. Obviously, I'm going to watch. I think, the NFC, I mean, we have, what is it? The Cowboys, Commanders, and Eagles all have 6 primetime games. So the NFC East is back. We've gone from the least to like the beast. So people want minus the Giants, of course. But like the NFC East is basically back, and they want to put. It was probably going to come down to the NFC North or the NFC East, because those are the divisions that are so good. They have personalities you want to follow. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, and it's kind of good that we don't have like huge personalities in house anymore, because what would this have done for like a CJ if he was put in front of cameras all the time? Like it would have been really interesting to watch that. But Yeah, I mean, I knew that eventually they were going to start delegating because no one's going to volunteer constantly to say, "I'll go on TV, I'll put us all out in front of the camera and all our secrets out there, air our dirty laundry out." Like you knew it was eventually going to happen. So
yeah, so I'm gonna be intrigued, and then hopefully I mean, I think the Eagles are definitely smart enough not to let anything get out, like unlike the Giants. So we'll see.
Oh, definitely.
All right, finally, Nick Sirianni gets his contract extension. We don't know the details, which with coaches we very rarely do. He is obviously deserving. Do you think it's 5 years? They said it's a multi-year contract. Do you think it's just a 2-year contract, 3-year contract? And is he making more than Ben Johnson? Ben Johnson's up to what, 12, 13 million, and he's never coached before. Andy Reid makes what? Close to 20?
He's way up there.
So where do you think Nick Sirianni lands in the hierarchy when it comes to being, because let's be real, when they signed him, nobody knew who he was, so they got him cheap. He ain't cheap anymore.
No, gosh, no. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. The good thing is it doesn't count against salary cap, so I don't care. This is purely Jeffrey Lurie writing a check, and he has to pay it out and see it out to the end. I mean, to be honest, I feel like it's probably, I don't know if they'd go as far as 5 years. They've seen teams screw up those big contracts. I feel like they'd be like,
there's no salary cap for coaches. So
there is no salary cap for coach, but I mean, like teams, you hate to be that team that drops a 5-year deal and fires them after the first year or something. You never want to be that team.
You want to be the Raiders giving Gruden a 10-year deal and getting rid of him after
well, exactly. There's a reason that most coach deals are 3 years, 5 years. You don't see it go much beyond that. I wouldn't be surprised if they said, how about we do 3 years and we'll make you one of, if not the highest paid coach. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he's ahead of Ben Johnson, but they convinced him on 3 years versus 5 years because they're like, listen, we don't do 5-year deals with coaches, but if you would like, we will give you 3 years and $15-16 million a year. And we're going to do right by you if you continue to perform to the level that you've been performing. It was fun. The change that he made post bye week was so fundamental and so huge to the success ultimately of the team, I think, going on for the rest of the season. What changed from the year prior and even then post bye week last year was huge. And I think that showed the Eagles a lot. Like, okay, we're willing to put more. We're willing to, like, there was no way if we made it to the playoffs and had an early exit that he's getting this extension. There's just no way. Mm-hmm. So he knew he had to do something right. And I think that he sees the way and he did the right way and made this fundamental change and knew that he just had to get out of his own way. And he definitely did. And I think if he continues to do that, he's going to continue to find great success in Philadelphia. Will he continue to be scrutinized in Philadelphia? 100%. There's no one's ever going to full on love their coach. He could win 3 straight Super Bowls, and it's probably not going to be good enough for some people in Philadelphia and some media. But at the end of the day, he's had great success. And there was that blip in the radar in that middle year where we completely lost it for 10 weeks, had the early playoff exit. Then we had the kind of rough start to the next season, and everyone was already speculating. We were obviously there too, speculating, would it make sense to move on this early and see if we can salvage this season? And then ultimately, he made that fundamental change and continues to be the players' coach, the culture builder, the foundation setter. And if he can continue to do that and stay out of his way, pay him what he wants, keep doing 3-year deals and put him up at the top of the coaching dollar range because he's at this point.
Yeah, and he's at the second winningest coach in the first 4 years, I think, of a coaching career. It's
similar to Jalen Hurts. When did we discount winning? I hate to go back to it, but like you already have a guy like Chris Sims saying, well, are we discounting those last 10 games a year prior? This is why he's not
discounting the regular season. No, we're not discounting the regular season. He won the freaking Super Bowl and was the Super Bowl MVP.
And he's been there twice. Like exactly. A lot of the guys that you're putting ahead of him haven't even made it to the Super Bowl, haven't even made it to conference finals. So like it's these guys deserve it. They're winning, and winning matters in football. And the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be one of those teams that just say winning matters. We don't care if you think we run the ball too much. If you think we should unleash Jalen Hurts more, if you think Sirianni should do this or be that, they don't care. If we're winning football games,
then they are deserving of the money that they get, and they're going to continue to pay these guys.
Yep, and I think the combination of Howie and Sirianni is going to be a good combination for a long time for the Eagles. And
even Laurie is obviously doing what he needs to do for Howie. Howie is doing what he needs to do for, I would say, more, Sirianni and Vic Fangio, because Vic Fangio clearly has a say in these defensive moves. But you can tell that they're all doing right for each other, and that's the right hierarchy. It's the right everything for Philadelphia right now. And even if we start 0-2, if we lose to the Cowboys week 1, you already know that the media is going to be all over these guys and like, oh, do you think you came too early for that extension on Syria? The discussions are going to happen, but we know winning matters. We love winning. When did it stop mattering in the NFL?
If you remember, after 2017, they gave Howie and Peterson extensions, and by halftime of that first game against Atlanta, the team got booed off the field. So it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. Like if the Eagles are struggling early on against Dallas in that first game, the fans are going to boo. But yes, so glad to be back here on the Kelly Green Hour. Now that we're pretty sure everything's going to be fine over now. You never know. Life throws a bunch of crap at you, then you just have to find a way to deal with it. We will be back next week, and we are going to go into our looking for our OTAs and the battles that we're looking forward to, roster battles, positional battles, and we'll see how this
team start tomorrow. Like
do they really?
Yeah, they start the 27th. Like we're here. We're already it feels like the off season feels like it drags, but it just kind of goes fast at the same time. You hit OTAs, and then what is it, 5-6 weeks from now we're into the preseason, or we're into training camp already. Mm-hmm. It flew.
Yeah,
it's become like this interconnecting thing, the NFL. You want the games, but then they have set so much up. You look at the combine, you look at the Senior Bowls and all these different bowls that they have. And
pointless, by the way. Oh, yeah. I did want to bring up the one thing about the draft picks that the Eagles. For years, the Eagles would draft from the top 30 visits that they bring in. They didn't draft anybody from their top 30 visits this year.
I know everyone was like, "Look at these top 30 visits; they're definitely taking at least one of them," and they were putting them all over.
Some of the free agents that they brought in, they were all coming on their rookie deal or coming off their rookie deals, mm-hmm. and they were guys that they did bring in, previous years, like 4 or 5 years ago. So, that was the interesting part with this draft class is. They didn't bring any, Campbell wasn't here, Makuba wasn't here. They may have met over, Skype or Zoom, whatever the heck it's called, but they didn't bring them in for a visit. So that was very intriguing. So
I think this was such a unique draft. The NFL told us it was a unique draft, and people didn't want to believe it, but they told you it was clear from executives it was going to be a unique and different draft than what we usually see. And I think that spoke even for the Eagles with how Howie ended up drafting people. But you can definitely tell they still put a value into it. But if you had told Howie he was going to get the chance to have Jihad Campbell or some of these guys where they were going to end up landing, he probably would have said, that's why we didn't meet, because we didn't think we were going to have a chance without having to move up aggressively and stuff. So,
yeah. All right. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurl54. Follow the Eagles Pin Pool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pin Pool Network. And thank you for all the comments in the chat. We'll be back next week to give our thoughts on OTAs, battles, players that we're looking forward to seeing. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.